the neutral zone in 1 minute, Captain.
Stand by. Approaching neutral zone.
I'm getting something on the distress channel.
May I remind the captain, the starship enters the zone. Now entering the neutral zone.
All right, everybody, how's it going? Welcome to the Neutral Zone, your safe space for talking about Star Trek. My name is Josh Wagner. I'm here with my pal, as always, John Ondo. John, welcome to the Neutral Zone.
I am ready to show you the minutia. I have a human brain like everybody else, but when it comes to what it's filled with, it's full of worthless information about pop culture and a lot of it's Star Trek. So I am ready.
In this particular webinar, we're going to talk about, and this is interactive, so you'll see below, as I ask the questions, you'll see your ability to, it's going to be sort of like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. You'll have a choice as to which one you choose, and then, of course, you'll have instantaneous results from the other people that are watching to see if you get those questions right. So it is interactive, and so we're going to do a little trivia episode, a little fun fact episode. Sort of a mix of those things.
The questions I have for you, and you have some questions for me, it'll be like phone a friend. We may give you an answer. Maybe it'll be the right one. Maybe it won't. But, you got to vote for what you think is right.
That's right. So I do want to say one thing. One of my proudest moments was I went to a Star Trek convention when I was about 14. And I got invited up to the trivia part of it. It was the middle of Next Generation time.
Yeah.
And I won.
Really?
I won, and to the extent where, yes, I won, to the extent where I wanted to play again. There was no semifinals. It was just everybody got a chance to play, and the one guy looks at me and says, "We're not letting you back up here because you know too much." And it was one of my favorite nerd moments of my life, where I was not allowed to play Star Trek trivia because I knew too much about Star Trek. So I don't know.
I'll tell you my quick.
Should that be a proud moment of my life, John? Should that be a proud moment of my life?
It really should be. Let me tell you about my brief Star Trek, and I wasn't involved, but my friend Josh White, who follows us on Neutral Zone Chat, he's a big Star Trek fan out in Colorado. We went to a Star Trek convention. It's the only Star Trek convention I've been to in Dayton, Ohio, and this was probably midway during the Next Generation run. I don't think Deep Space Nine had started yet. So they have the trivia contest going on, and this was probably 96 because I remember there's a lot of buzz going on about Apollo 13 coming out. So they're going through, and everybody's doing, what's the Enterprise D and blah blah, and it's just like softball questions. And I hate to say it, now I can't get a lot of it because there's 800 episodes and 7,000 series and 2 million movies. I don't know it all. But back then, when it was just original series and Next Generation in the canon, I knew it all. I could get you anything. And so I'm sitting in the crowd, and then some guy gets up and says, "What's Dr. Crusher's grandmother's name?" or something like that. And I remember looking at Josh, and we looked at each other. I'm like, "That's not it." And then the guys who were running the little trivia game said, "This can't be from a book or something. It has to be from the TV." "Oh yeah, it's in the TV show." And I'm like, "What the heck? I don't know." Finally, one of the guys on the panel says, "Did you pull this off a display, off of one of the computers pausing the videotape?" And the guy's like, "Yeah." And we're like, I'm done. I can't. When you're at the point where you're pausing the videos to read what's on the computer displays, I'm done. I can't compete with you.
I actually think it was on her tombstone. I think that's where they. It may have been.
Got it. It was something that nobody could quite get to, and it was at that point I realized I am not worthy. So anyway, so let's see.
Well, we never got to that much minutia. But let me. I'm gonna toss a softball to you. This will be my first.
Okay.
My first softball. This will be a softball.
This is for our viewers. So you're not giving it to me. We're gonna see what happens.
That's right. So, what famous scientist was on an episode of The Next Generation?
Oh, I know that one.
What famous scientist? Yeah, that's a.
I'm going to do that on all of them. Question, I'll just say, yeah, I know that one.
Well, go ahead, John. Do you know the answer to that one? Do you personally know the answer? I know that everybody's answer
say
down
that now. I got to remember it. I almost said Sagan, but it wasn't Sagan. It's I can't think of his name. I can see his face, and they had a wonderful movie with him.
It was
we were just
Stephen Hawking.
Hawking, that's right. I'm sorry. I had him in my mind.
And he
saw the movie and everything. And
he was playing poker. He was playing poker with Newton and Einstein and all those guys. So and there's a great story. There's a great story about Stephen Hawking, Dr. Hawking, when he was on as a guest star. Apparently, he walked in front of the warp core, and he stopped, and he looked up at it and said in his robot voice, "Hey, I'm working on that right now."
That's awesome.
So that's one of the great stories. I really threw that trivia question out there so I could tell that story where he actually looked at the warp core and said, "I'm actually working on that right now." So it's pretty cool that if that's maybe it's a true story, maybe it's not, but it's a great story if Stephen Hawking actually said that. So that's my softball question. I see. I can tell you a lot of people are getting that one right. So yeah, that's really excellent. So John, what do you got for me?
Okay, so let me we'll throw this one out because this might be something that the younger folk won't get. In which 1960s Star Trek inspired when Roddenberry was working on season 2, because remember he wasn't in season 1, but Roddenberry had a inspiration for the Pavel Chekhov character from 1960s pop culture. Who was it?
Oh, I don't know that.
Well, I'll give you a hint. The hair is kind of the same.
Was it one of the monkeys?
Very good. Davy Jones.
Davy Jones, yeah.
So that
all right, let's see. So people are answering that one right now, so let's see. So we'll see how they did. All right. So some people got it. That's good.
Yeah.
Davy Jones. All right.
It's not as people know about as other people.
So let's talk about this is something that, as I was looking some of these fun facts up, I had no idea that this happened. But there was an actor that was in many. Let's see, he was in one of the movies and a couple of the different series. So he was an actor in at least three different parts. And this actor was also in a famous movie called Spaceballs, which was a Star Wars parody back in the 80s. And what actor was also in 3 different parts of Star Trek, a movie and 2 different series?
Okay, so we're not talking about like Shatner or
no, we're not talking about Shatner, but he's well known. He'd be well known to a Star Trek fan. And he was also in the movie Spaceballs. I know that's a pretty obscure reference, but and I didn't know this until I was looking up some deep facts. I found this out, so I was looking around the internet and saw this. So there's your opportunity to answer down there. And so I'll go ahead and tell you now that you've had a second to vote. It was Tim Russ who played Tuvok.
Oh.
I did not know this. Tuvok was in Spaceballs, and if you want to know where he was. Yeah, I didn't know that either before today. And one of the things that he was, the part that he was in is when they're combing the desert, and they have guys literally with giant combs, combing the desert in Spaceballs, and they get to the 2 African American guys with the hair pick.
Of course.
And he's the guy that says, "We ain't found shit." That's what his claim to fame was. So he is that guy. I went back and watched it. It's very hard to tell that it's him because he's very young. But that's him apparently, and it's in several different websites. I did fact check myself.
And you're right.
We don't have the fake news going on in it.
He was in that. He was also in the episode Starship Mine, where he played one of the guys trying to take over the starship, and obviously he was in
one of the pirates. Yep.
And Voyager. No, not Voyager. Yeah, Voyager. Yeah.
Yeah, he was in Voyager. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah.
And technically he was the same. He was in Star Trek VI. The Undiscovered Country, as a member of the bridge crew on the Excelsior.
Yeah.
Which they had had a flashback episode in Voyager where they went back to that scene where Praxis blows up. So he was actually in Star Trek VI, he was in The Next Generation, and he was in Voyager. He may have been in other things, but I know those are the 3 things that he was in Star Trek.
That's a pretty good run.
He was the guy that had the famous line, "We ain't found shit" in
That's what you really want to be remembered for, I think, when you get down to it. Okay, so how about this one, Josh? This is your thing. It's the Next Generation one. I think this is going to be a softball for you, but we'll try it anyway. In the Star Trek, and we've mentioned this before, one of my favorite episodes, Star Trek Next Generation episode Data's Day. What tune is heard while Data and Dr. Crusher are dancing? It's not anything from 21 Pilots. It's
maybe I should just wait and see what the vote is for the from our viewers here.
It is.
I'm going to guess. Isn't it romantic?
Very good.
Oh, is that? I was right. Yep, I was right. Good. That's
Very
when they're
nice.
slow dancing, right?
Isn't it? Because they did the tap dance first, if you remember, and then they did computer
That's right.
play. Isn't it romantic? So nice.
Which is a great scene. That's the whole episode's great. But that scene where she teaches them to dance is a really excellent scene.
Yeah.
You can see that Gates McFadden is really a very talented person.
Yeah.
Probably wasted her talents in that particular series. You know, they tried to work her in where they could.
Yeah.
But they could have done a little bit better. So, all right, this is one that again I didn't know, and you'll love this one, John.
All right.
Because I know you're a fan. But the Klingon language was first developed by who? Who developed the Klingon language first?
So obviously the answer is not the Klingons. It's something else.
It is not the Klingons. What real life person developed the first
And
part?
it's somebody
the first
I should
basic
know. You're saying.
sound and the first few words and phrases. Yes, who should that be? So I was very surprised to find this out. So I have a lot of different choices down there to throw everybody off. But what do you think?
And to think about that too, they never spoke Klingon until this first movie. I don't believe they were always speaking.
That's right. Yeah.
English. So just to put some.
That's right. Yep.
So we're getting some.
Well,
votes
so the
there.
answer. Yep, the answer is James Doohan, who played Scotty. Is the one that came up with the first sound, the basic sound, and the first words and phrases. Yeah, Jimmy Doohan. Who I actually got to meet once. I got to meet him once. He was already kind of on
jealous.
the
I wish
downswing.
I could have met him. He would have been my top guy to meet. Very cool. That's kind of cool. He's if you ever watch the animated series, he did a lot of the voices, and actually, he does a lot of the voices, like the episode in the original series where they go back in time and they're getting ready to launch a missile. I think it's Assignment Earth. And there's, the NASA voice going 10 minutes to launch. That's Doohan. He's doing the voice on that and some other things. So he does some cool things. Okay, so speaking.
Well, I know it's your turn, but I'm going to ask another one. I'm going to ask a follow-up question about Jimmy Doohan. So he was missing part of his finger on his right hand.
Oh.
And why did he lose his finger? What made him lose his finger?
I think I know, but I'll wait a second. Let everybody vote on it first. I think I know this, but so tell me when you think it's
okay. What do you think?
I thought that he had been in World War II, if I'm not mistaken, and I think it was a battle injury.
He was.
Am I right on that?
It was, and a specific battle, a very famous battle. He lost it in
D-Day, wasn't it?
It was in D-Day. All right, he was. He was in the Canadian military that was taking one of the beaches, and he lost it in D-Day. So I think it was shot off or something.
Yes, I can't remember my kids' birthdays, but I do remember that little piece of information from something somewhere.
You don't have to remember. That's why we have social media, and also they'll remind you that their birthday's coming up. That's what kids are for.
Okay, so in Star Trek,
so I jumped on that one. So I jumped over you on that one.
Okay,
so you
that's
go ahead
not
and
a
do
problem.
one.
So in Star Trek: The Motion Picture, how long does the crew have to get the new redesigned USS Enterprise out of space dock? Because you remember the big cloud thing was coming. How long did they have? Because they had to be on an intercept course, if you recall. Anybody? How many?
That's a tough one.
What was the length of time they had?
I'm going to venture a guess. I'm going to say 4 hours.
Oh, I'm so sorry. No, they had 12 hours. They had 12 hours to intercept.
12 hours.
If you remember, they launched into the warp core problem, which put them in that the really cool sequence with the wormhole. Remember that?
The wormhole. Yeah.
And this and again, let me give you more worthless information. One of the funniest lines ever in a Mad magazine, when they would always do their parodies in Mad magazine about the movies. In the parody version, they play out the scenario. They go in the wormhole, and then Spock shows up and he says, "I've solved your engine imbalance problem. Instead of having 4 engines on the left side, I've decided to put 2 on the left and 2 on the right." And Kirk says, "You're amazing, Spock." Mad Magazine got this great stuff.
Mad Magazine's had some great parodies, Star Trek
fabulous.
parodies.
All right,
really
your turn.
Great. Yeah. So that wormhole sequence is one of my favorite Chekhov lines. Photon torpedoes ready. He says it real slow. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
because it keeps slowing. I don't know, for some reason I guess that wormhole slowed him down eventually and made them stop.
It was one of the things that, and we all understand why Ronald Moore, who both was on Star Trek as well as on Galactica, and they did an incredible job of simulating real space in Galactica. Because it was always silent, very very little background noise. But of course, in that classic time warp thing going on in the original movie, it's just got that wind flowing thing going on, and it's like, yeah, there's no sound in space. But you gotta have sound, or else it's kind of a boring movie.
So here's an interesting thing about one of my favorite movies. Here's another question. All of Khan's men in Star Trek II Wrath of Khan, all of Khan's men had something in common.
Okay, I'm thinking.
So what did they have? What did all of the actors that played Khan's men have in common in Star Trek II?
I could think of one, but I'm not sure if it's what you want.
Well, what's your guess there, John?
I would say they were all white, weren't they?
Well, they all were white. They weren't supposed to be. Yeah, they were not supposed. No, that's not the thing.
Okay.
But they were all white. I guess that is technically a correct answer.
I guess because Khan was a Nazi apparently or something. So I don't know.
Well, Khan would have been Indian. Khan was supposed to be Indian.
I know,
he was supposed to be from an Indian from India.
He was all eugenics.
But they were all. Here we go. They were all Chippendales dancers.
Well, that's about the same as a Nazi, isn't it, Josh? I mean, for Pete's sakes, I don't know.
I guess so. I guess if you're going to have genetic supermen, you're going to have to bring in some Chippendales dancers.
I guess.
No, that was a vocational path I could have taken at one time, but unfortunately, I lacked the physique and dancing skills, and also everything else that was required for that.
That also might explain why the other than the guy who always constantly says, no, you can't go into the nebula. Other than them, none of the other guys said anything because they didn't strike me as really good actors, from what I could tell.
No, I don't think they were there because they were good actors.
They were just doing this a lot. Look at me. Okay, well, I did not know that. My favorite movie there, I didn't know. So here's one. Let's jump ahead one movie now. How many actors played Spock in Star Trek III: The Search for Spock? Now, don't jump too quickly. Think about it.
How many actors played Spock?
Yeah, because remember, he goes through his.
I think it was 4 actors.
According to my information, the correct answer is 5.
5. I was really close.
There was
there's
one.
That,
Carl.
It's 5. Yep.
Steven.
It's 5.
Apparently, they had a because obviously they had a teenage version that was the one who kind of gets it on with what's her name, and they have obviously
Saavik.
Nimoy.
Yeah, Saavik.
And then there's a couple of kids in the mix to that, so they technically had 5 according to what we've been told. So, and they have the list here. So
they probably had a couple of different. They kind of a couple of different teenagers that kind of looked alike. That's probably why I said 4.
I mean, it was on the internet, Josh, so it has to be true.
That's what Abraham Lincoln says. That's right.
Absolutely.
So here's you can ballpark this one. You can ballpark this particular answer. And this goes to our J.J. Abrams films.
Oh.
So here we are. This is great. You'll love this as a producer and a filmmaker yourself, John.
All right.
How many lens flares were in the J.J. Abrams Star Trek 2009 reboot? How many lens flares were there?
I couldn't even guess. I mean,
ballpark it. Just give me a round number. Hundreds, thousands,
let's
millions.
See. There's let me do it scientifically. It's an hour. It's almost a 2-hour movie, so it's 120 minutes. So let's just say there's at least on the action scenes on average 3 flares per minute. Let's go with 360 flares.
You aren't even close. It's 721 lens flares in that particular movie. And there's actually apparently.
Hold on, let me do this. So I can kind of get
there's
it
a
there.
YouTube. There's a YouTube video you can actually see all the lens flares in that particular movie. There's a YouTube video where they cut out all of the lens flares because somebody has even more time on their hands than you and I do, John.
Well, I know, and the thing was, I saw that movie with your brother Mark, and I remember watching it going, what's with all the lens flares? And then what's funny, as a director, and I do editing and commercials and stuff, it's like you had to add it to things after that. It was like you had to add flare. And just in case you were wondering, they were literally holding flashlights and stuff, creating some of those. They weren't all added in post, but they did add some in post because there is a filter you can add those things. But they were actually trying to add that, and it's become, it's that style. I'm sure in 10 years we'll look back and go, oh my gosh, that was back in the lens flare era. But unfortunately, that was
right.
a big thing. Okay, so let's see here.
I did read somewhere. I saw a YouTube video. I think it was a YouTube video that said lens flares were actually in early movie productions up through the Hitchcock era and even the 70s. The lens flares were seen as a big no-no, that people actually avoided them.
Oh,
at all
absolutely.
costs, and,
you had to avoid lens
everything they
flare. It was always a no-no. There's all kinds of lighting things. You never would put a lens flare, but again, in this new world that we have, where we use a lot of what's called steady cams and things, and it's that reality that makes it look more real because we're used to it, and it makes editing easier because you can just flash a flare through real quick and change a shot. But it's that 700 that says a lot. And again, in a 120-minute movie, that means you're averaging 4 or 5 flares, and of course you're not going to have one during every scene. So it's like that's a lot of flares, JJ. So okay.
That's a lot of flares, yeah.
So here's one for you. This is going back. This is going to be hard for you, Josh, but I think you know this episode. In the acclaimed Star Trek, this is the original series, City on the Edge of Forever. What Depression-era Earth slang word does Captain Kirk not understand?
Oh my gosh, I don't really know.
She asks Kirk and Spock, "Hey, do you have a?" And we getting some good answers there.
I don't really know.
The word was, you have a flop.
You have a plot?
A flop. F-L-O-P. Because it was
a flop, right.
It was a place to stay for the night. Kirk didn't understand that.
Right. That's right. What was the thing that that Spock didn't understand in Voyage Home in the 4th movie? There was some slang he didn't understand.
Well, he was always stuck
LDS.
on colorful metaphors.
That's right, colorful. That's what I'm thinking of.
Colorful,
and then, of course, Kirk says something about LDS. He had a lot of LDS in Berkeley instead of LSD. That's probably what I'm thinking of.
Voyage Home
right,
is a great show. Yeah.
This is my last one. What did Leonard Nimoy's dad do for a living? What did Leonard Nimoy's dad do for a living?
This should be a softball one, right?
A little. Well, maybe, I don't know.
All right.
Not Spock's dad, but Leonard Nimoy's dad.
Oh, Leonard. Okay.
This is actually.
I thought.
It was actually set up so that I could
dad.
tell a little story. Oh, what's that now?
I thought Sarek was Leonard Nimoy's dad. Okay, so
no, Leonard Nimoy's dad.
I know some of his family, but let's see what everybody else is saying here before I jump in.
Right.
I know.
All right. Well, here it is.
Okay, go ahead.
I think he was a barber. Now, the reason I bring this up, I think it's important. Because he offered customers a Spock cut at his barber shop. He would cut their hair to look like Spock's hair. So that's the only reason I brought it up, because I thought that was kind of a funny.
I did not know that. That's
fact.
Funny.
Yeah.
Well, I think our friends played some good. We got some smart Star Trek people here that are.
We do. Some of them got them all right. Some of them only got a few right. But I think this is kind of an interesting mix of questions. So I certainly wouldn't have gotten all these right had I not known the answers to all of them. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed it, folks. And join us for other episodes, podcasts of the Neutral Zone Chat. And I hope that you, John, thank you for stumping me with some of these questions, and I hope you were stumped too. I think we all learned something tonight. I hope that you live long and prosper, and we'll see you in the Neutral Zone.